Habakkuk is one of my favorite books, and we're not doing it next week. Do y'all know next week's Easter? Come, invite your friends. He is risen still. Yeah. But we will talk about Jonah next week because that's the minor prophet that Jesus talked about whenever he was talking about his resurrection. But we will get into Jonah next week. But Habakkuk is, I was tempted to my mic's a little hot. Am I ringing out there? It's gain. Let me pull my gain back a little bit. All right. Habakkuk is one of those books that I wish I could teach all the time. Because Habakkuk has a conversation with God that I feel like we've all had. He has it in chapter 1, in which he says, Habakkuk says to God, look at these people. He's talking about the southern kingdom of Judah. Israel's already been taken away by Assyria. Habakkuk's looking around, and he has this conversation with God. He says, why can't we get it right? We seem to be constantly messing up. And I'm looking around at all these people, and I'm like, what are they? They're doing all of this wrong. They're doing all of this wrong. Excuse me. They are messing up regularly. I don't like the people I'm living with. We've abandoned the law, he says to God. What are you going to do about these people? These people. Haven't you been frustrated with these people? These people. And God comes back to him and says, oh, don't you worry about these people, because I'm going to overtake them with those people. And Habakkuk is flabbergasted. Gasted is full flabbered. Because God says to Habakkuk, I'm going to send Babylon, and they're going to take care of them. And Habakkuk hits that problem that we all hit when we're frustrated with these people. Those people aren't any better. He says to God, aren't they worse? Yeah, sure, we've abandoned the law and we've had some unjust practices, but they're going around with swords and sickles and getting people by the hook. Those people are worse than these people, so I guess I will just keep going to church with these people. God says, no, it's going to happen. And Habakkuk gets frustrated with God. And this is where we find Habakkuk at the beginning of chapter 2. They've had this back and forth. Oh God, where are you? These people are so rough. And God says, oh, don't you worry. I'm sending the Babylonians. He calls them the Chaldeans. I'm sending the Babylonians. Don't you worry. And Habakkuk says, wait, those people? Can't we just organize these people a little better? He says, you know what? I don't think you should do that, God. Those people are called those people for a reason. And he gives that complaint. And then declares in verse 1 of chapter 2, I will stand at my watchpost and station myself on the rampart. Basically he's saying, I'm gonna take up a camp on the wall of the city. And I will keep watch to see what God will say to me, what he will answer concerning my complaint. So far, Habakkuk has complained about these people and those people. What are you going to do about it, God? And the Lord answered me and said, write the vision, make it plain on tablets. I love this. So that a runner may read it. He says, get you a billboard. That's why billboards are so big. Remember that scene from Fahrenheit 411 where they're saying that the advertisements, you don't remember that? You read it last year. 451, 411. Fahrenheit dial information, yes. Thank you. That scene from Fahrenheit 451. Claire read it last year. Macy read it this year. I read it last year when Claire read it. And they, what? You didn't read it? Is that what you just said? But there's a scene where, and it was written a long time ago, but it was saying that the advertisements had gotten so big because the cars had gotten so fast. And the faster you go about your life, the bigger, the less attention you have for the small things around you. And so the ads are so big. He says, get me a billboard. Write it so big that the runner can see it. This is what you need to hear. For there still is a vision for the appointed time, he says. It speaks of the end and does not lie. If it seems to tarry, wait for it. It will surely come. It will come without delay. Look at the proud. Their spirit is not right in them, but the righteous live by faith or trust. Moreover, wealth is treacherous. The arrogant do not endure. They open their throats wide as Sheol. Like death, they never have enough. They gather all nations for themselves and collect all peoples as their own. He says, what you have in your midst are people who are never satisfied with what they have at this moment. The Israelites have been like this. They've done this in small ways where, and he'll go on to say in chapter 2, you give loans with high interest rates and you keep making money off of other people's debts. This is strictly forbidden in the law. But if I can make money on it, we might as well skip the law, so therefore we can prosper. Everybody has the right to prosper. And so he says, if we could just prosper, then we'll have the right, we'll have enough stuff. But the Babylonians, yes, they're going from town to town and putting injustices on the people. That they are taking these cities from people, but you're taking money from your neighbor. We're all there. Shall not everyone taunt such people, he says, with mocking riddles, and say about them, alas, alas for you also heap up what is not your own. How long will you load yourselves with goods taken in pledge? Here he's talking about these small injustices. You say they're taking over towns. I'm telling you, you're taking over your neighbor. Because you have plundered many nations, all that survive of the people shall plunder you. Because of human bloodshed and violence of the earth to cities and all who live in them. This is a condemnation of both Babylon and all of those who practice Babylonian tactics in their own life. The big nation that's taking over other nations and the people who will just take advantage of their neighbor. God comes to Habakkuk and says, injustice is not just played out in the national scene. You are taking advantage of people everywhere. And whether you're doing it to your neighbor or to your neighbor's state, it's all the same injustice. Nobody is living out the way of God in this time. It reminds me a little bit of Job in this sense, where you ask a question, you're going to get an answer. Job did that, where he said, why, O Lord, me? And they spend a lot of chapters pontificating. He and his friends, back and forth. And he gets to the end, and God says, what? Who are you to ask me this? You can't even fathom it's like your dog questioning your taxes. That's not the analogy God used, but it's a good one. And so he's saying out loud, listen, this is not the way God wants it to be, and their comeuppance is coming up. They will get what's coming to them. The end of Babylon will happen. And it does. It happens within the next few centuries. And he says, but, if it tarries, still wait. He says in verse 9, alas, for you will get evil gain for your houses, setting your nest on high to be safe from the reach of harm. You have devised shame for your house by cutting off many peoples. You have forfeited your life. The very stones will cry out from the wall, and the plaster will respond from the woodwork. Let's skip down to verse 18 if you can spot it. What use is an idol once its maker has shaped it? He's basically saying you've given your life over to these things that don't love you back. These physical things. And these Babylonians are taking cities and you're hoarding wealth. Like death, you can't have enough. He says it feels like Sheol never gets full. It seems like you are the same. But you keep making these idols and they're telling you you're doing great. But what use is an idol once its maker has shaped it? A cast image, a teacher of lies. For its maker trusts in what has been made, though the product is only an idol that cannot speak. The other prophets have almost jokingly talked about the fact that how silly is it that you make something and then worship it? You're the creator. It's the created. Why are you worshiping it? You make an idol and you give it all your trust. But what is it really? There are things we trust that aren't worth our trust. Stuff we've just made up. For its maker trusts in what can be made, though the product is only an idol and it cannot speak. Alas, he says in verse 19, for you who say to the wood, wake up, calling on the name of this idol, pay us attention. To the silent stone, rouse yourself. Can it teach? Can the rock teach you anything? See, it is gold and silver plated, and there is no breath in it at all. But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him. We put our trust, and the Babylonians did it, the Israelites do it, we do it. We put our trust in things that don't love us. And things that have no breath. They are not even alive to love. We put our trust in those things. Whether it's financial as it seems to be, or power with the Israelites, or power as it seems to be with the Babylonians, which power always leads to some bit of financial gain, I guess, financial gain. No matter what we love that doesn't love us back, no matter what we give out that doesn't give back to us, it's all a waste of our energy. We look to God and we say, why, God, is this happening? I've told the story before of the woman whose house I sat in while I was, why has this happened to me? This thing that has happened, this thing I'm up against, this thing I'm worried about. Why is it happening? And she said, why has God done this to me? And she was suffering from the effects of diabetes, and she was eating a Butterfinger while she said it. Now, that is an over-the-top example of something all of us do. It's an over-the-top example of, oh, isn't that silly? Someone thinks God has done something that they have wandered into the place themselves. Now, if God had, if I get it. Sometimes I just want a Butterfinger. They're delicious. But sometimes you just want what you shouldn't have. And in the long run, it's going to hurt you. We react like that with anger or with jealousy or with envy or with spite, with sarcasm or we're cynical. None of that's going to help us. None of that makes us better. But it feels good in the moment. And it leads to ruin. God will take out those who hurt others. And God is telling Habakkuk, listen, I'm using the Babylonians, but I don't agree with the Babylonians. I'm not their God. The same end that comes to Judah will come to Babylon. No country, no nation lasts forever. None of them. Do you remember all the countries you had to learn when you were a kid? At some point, hopefully, during your education, you had to know all of the countries on the earth. Maybe you made it to college before you had to do that. But you had to go in and you had to take a pencil and you had to write the name of every country on earth. Some of you memorized the Animaniacs song, but that's a reference just for like 7 of you. You had to know all of them. And it's useless information now. They're all different now. They've split, they've joined, they've gathered, they're republics. It's all, there's one called Uzbekistan. And you cannot count on power on this earth lasting. It's all made of stone and wood. And so if your confidence is in this nation or this power or that power, if your confidence is in these people or those people, you are not placing your trust in the one who is in his holy temple. The whole earth needs to be silent before him. And God's going to do what God does. God's going to take care of things. But God's job is not to be my concierge for my life. Sometimes we use these passages like where he says, even here in Habakkuk, things are going to work out. I've got it under control. We go to Jeremiah. Oh Lord, if I'm confident if Jeremiah knew how we were going to use that passage in Jeremiah, he wouldn't have said it. I know the plans I have for you. Plans for you to prosper and succeed. And everyone throws confetti in the air and says, we get to prosper. I know you're going to flourish. I'm going to flourish with a flourish. I know the plan. You know the people he said that to lived the rest of their life in captivity. They were taken into captivity and they died there. Now, eventually the people got to come back. And eventually the people rebuilt the temple. And they were still in the process of it whenever Jesus was walking by, watching the construction. And he said, someday this is all going to be toppled over. But destroy this temple and I will build it again in 3 days. He's telling them the resurrection's coming. Like we are putting our hope in these bricks that are stacking on top of each other. But the Lord is always in his holy temple, because wherever God is, that too is holy. And it's not the bricks, but it was that carpenter's son walking by. That the plan of God is big and it crosses centuries. It has nothing to do with whether or not you're going to sell your house. Nothing to do. Like God's plan is for you to, no matter what, whether the house sells or that you get the job or whether you get into that college or whether your kids. Listen, all of you are rooting for your adult kids to make the right choice. They won't. But whether your kids are doing this thing or maybe they get it right or maybe whatever, we are hoping that things go well. But God's plan is no longer for things to go well for us. It's for us to be well within the things that aren't going well. It's for us to be the kind of people Jesus has shaped while things are a little bit hectic. Habakkuk never sees the day that the Lord shows up. Habakkuk definitely doesn't see the resurrection. He certainly sees the destruction. He certainly sees it all fall apart. And he closes his book with this, and this is the most important thing Christians can remember in difficult times. In fury you trod the earth, God. In anger, you trampled the nations, he says in verse 12. Verse 13, you came forth to save your people. You crushed the head of the wicked house, laying it bare from foundation to root. And then we have a Selah, which just means, hey, let's think about that for a second. You pierced with their arrows the head of the warriors who came into the whirlwind to scatter us, gloating as if ready to devour the poor. You were in hiding. You trampled the sea with your horses, churning the mighty waters. God's doing a great thing. I know. Now he's referencing the Exodus. He's saying, you did a great thing then. You will do a great thing coming up. I hear and I tremble within my lips, quiver at the sound. Rottenness enters my bones and my steps tremble beneath me. I wait quietly for the day of calamity to come upon the people who attack us. I'm waiting for the day. You said it right, oh God. That day's coming, but I'm set waiting. You know what happens while you're waiting on the day of calamity to come on the people who oppress you? You get oppressed. The whole time. Waiting on the day of the Lord to show up and for injustice to be taken care of. Do you know what happens that whole time while you're waiting? Injustices abound. Now, we're going to stand up to it. We're going to call it out. We're going to try to overcome it, be his people. But while you're waiting on the Lord, it feels like the Lord's not there. But look what he says at the very end. Though the fig tree does not blossom, and no fruit is on the vines, though the produce of the olive fails, and the fields yield no food, though the flock is cut off from the fold, and there are no herds in the stalls. Yet I will rejoice in the Lord. There are no conditions for Habakkuk's joy. There are no conditions for Habakkuk's rejoicing in God, the God of my salvation. Verse 19 says, God, the Lord, is my strength. He makes my feet like feet of a deer and makes me tread upon the heights. And then he says, add some strings, let's sing about it. This is the closest thing to let's stand and sing that we have in all of Scripture. And while we don't have any strings that aren't in my office, the idea is we are not promising you, and beware of any preacher that promises you wealth tomorrow. Beware of any preacher that promises you health today. Beware of any teaching that says if you just get right with God, and usually they get more southern and whispery the more heretical it gets. I'm just telling you, if you have any preacher that's like, now listen, God's going to tell you, God's going to, you give it the right amount, God's going to send blessing your way. Beware this hand. Because they're telling you faith leads to good things. Following Jesus will lead to an abundance of wealth. And your illness will go away if you just have enough faith and give enough to the church. That's sin talking. Because most of the Christian life, if you read Revelation, you read Habakkuk, you read practically all of the prophets, read James, most of the Christian walk is being the kind of person Jesus was while you suffer the kinds of things Jesus suffered. We cannot claim that the Christian life is abundance and wealth and health when our Savior died on a cross. We will find resurrection, and we will find resurrection soon. Our hope is in that resurrection. But Habakkuk is faithful not because he saw the things come to fruition. He actually says, I didn't see any fruit at all. There were no figs, no grapes, no olives, no food in the fields, and no herds in the stalls. But I will rejoice in the Lord. True followers of Christ, true followers of faith, like when you get to the place where your life is following Jesus, is not dependent on how good it's going, how orderly the world is. Following God often looks like being hungry and in lack and full of joy. Being oftentimes directionless and confused, but full of trust. We have to center ourselves not on what God has done for us, not necessarily as far as like our life and we've been blessed and we have health and so on and so forth. That will all fall apart. The other day, Rachel and I were texting about, and I know we're young. I know we're in our 40s and it really hasn't even hit yet. But the other day I texted Rachel and we were talking about some ailment. And one of us said, is it a symptom or a side effect? Which I feel like we're going to be asking that question for the rest of our lives. Do I need medicine, or is my medicine causing this? Or can you no longer eat milk or whatever it is as you get older? you will fall apart. You will need, you will have want. It will happen. It will. But we sit in the favor of God, and we rejoice in the Lord. And not because he's doing, but because he is. He is in his holy temple. And so we keep silence before him. That means we are in awe of him. He takes our breath away. And it has nothing to do with how good things are, but it has everything to do with how good he is. We have these palms down here. And it's Palm Sunday. And we tried to rent a donkey. We just couldn't. But these are for picking up. And I think, is this the youth? The youth had, Andy, is the youth did this? The youth have already done this, and they're great at stuff like this, but this would be helpful to you. And we'll have the youth have these at the back. But what we're going to do during potluck, or during, at the beginning, is we want to write down what it is that we need to lay at his feet. The kids, I won't read theirs, but I can read them here. And serious stuff. Like stuff that they've realized, I've got to lay this down. And it's good for us to put into practice, to put our hands to words and put that on something and then physically lay it down, get rid of it. So today on Palm Sunday, as we go and we eat together, as we spend time together, we're going to lay these down at the feet of Jesus. And so if you have something that you want to get rid of, maybe it's keeping you from joy. Maybe it's keeping you from closer relationship with the people around you. Maybe it's keeping you further from that temple where God sits and is holy. It's not a magical cure, but it's a good practice to do something that allows you to lay something at the feet of the King who will return, and he is indeed King, and he is alive. Whatever you need this morning, please come forward. You can go to the back and pray with someone back there. Whatever you need this morning, please do that while we stand and while we sing.